to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's WTF, Window Treatment Friday, and I have my good friend Vita with me again. Hi, Vita. How are you?
Hey, LuAnn. I'm great. How are you today?
I'm great. I have two shout-outs. First, I want to pay homage to my sponsors, Article.com. Article.com is your resource, as you know, if you listen to the show, for mid-century Scandinavian-inspired furniture for offices, living rooms, dining rooms, and outdoor spaces. You know the things I love about Article, in addition to the sleek, chic lines of their furniture, is that their To the Trade program is run by an interior designer. So they really understand that there are such things as furniture emergencies. As we know, there are window treatment emergencies, right, Vita?
Don't we know it? One would think there would be, but it's a thing. It's definitely a thing.
It is a thing. So, but that's great when you work with a company that comes from the same industry, actually doing the type of work that you did, and that's what happens at their trade division. So they really do understand when you need regular help and extra help. And you can open your To the Trade account by going to welldesigned.article.com. Okay, that's welldesigned.article.com. Now, the second thing that I have to do before we start today's show is, Vita doesn't know this, but I have received the most awesome feedback on critiquing you as a teacher leading our class Profit with Window Treatments.
Aw, that's so nice. I did not know you were going to say that. I swear, people, I did not pay her. I swear.
No, I mean, and what's so interesting for me is that, well, and it's not, you know what it is? It's just the feedback was exactly all the things I love about you, Vita, that I already knew, but to see other people see the same qualities in you, just like such a high level of professionalism, such a high level of knowledge and expertise in the window treatment area. And then, of course, no one can ever have any comments about Vita that do not revolve around the awe of your spreadsheets and your organization.
Oh, the spreadsheets, I live and die by them.
I mean,
nice to hear. Thank you.
And the thing was, in regard to the actual true, genuine, like, reverence for your spreadsheets and organization was such a deep level of appreciation that you shared those documents with the designers in the Profit with Window Treatments course. And so that, like the one designer said to me, that was pure gold right there, worth price of admission right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
That is so nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You know, I mean, you, on one hand, you know that you give and you share and you do everything, you know, to put yourself out there and give all the information, but to hear back that indeed that was received that way and appreciated, that just takes it to a whole different level. And I do have to say that I had such a great time teaching the class, and it was so like gratifying to know that the designers came into the class with a certain level of information and expertise and confidence, or lack of thereof, but 8 weeks later they graduated, if you will, with a whole new level, a much more elevated level of knowledge and expertise and confidence. And to know that I was able to take them that way, and they did a lot of work and a lot of asking of the questions and a lot of listening and a lot of just really being open to all the information. It was just an amazing, really gratifying and a remarkable experience. And I have to thank you back, LuAnn, for allowing me to have that experience, for providing us the platform to have it, for making the class available available because, I mean, I came in and I taught and I provided the content, but this would not have happened if it wasn't for you and your ability to put it out there, your ability to have the audience to promote it to, and really your sales skills as well. And just in all the back end that you and your team have done. So thank you. It was a team effort on all of our accounts, and it was wonderful.
It really was. And so I just have to say, of course, this course is directed for the interior designers. So for our window treatment homies listening, this is not window treatment people teaching window treatment people, right? This is window treatment people teaching designers the groundwork, the skill level, the information, so that they can come to the relationship with the window treatment expert and feel confident in it. And we did have one designer in it who is making a little twist in her business and a little turn in her business, who is now thinking about rebranding and leading as a window treatment expert, who then may sometimes do interior design projects. So, so that's the nuance of who it's for. And who knows, in the future, maybe we will do more courses where I think there's a need to teach window treatment people how to work with designers and how to cultivate that relationship. Like WindowWorks has probably at this point 40 or 50 interior designers that we are on a regular basis doing their projects for them. And so that's a whole little business model in there too for a retailer, not so much for the workroom. Like your business and my business, completely different, okay? But as a workroom, they're going to come to you directly for, it's just different. There's just more to come is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
There's so many ways. There's so many different directions in which to take this class. I mean, if the whole platform is knowledge of window treatments, there is lots and how to incorporate them into the design projects and how to elevate the window treatments and how to elevate window treatments as the component of the design project, and the working relationships between the two teams, between design and the fabrication side and the window treatment expert side. There's like a million ways that I can think of taking this course in the future.
True. It's true. So, and as the time that this show goes live, we are a week and a half away from IWCE, International Window Covering Expo. We are a week and a day from Exciting Windows Conference. So the Exciting Windows Conference is immediately prior to the IWCE, the 4 days prior, and then we roll right into the IWCE. So Vita and I will both be in Charlotte. If you're listening to this in real time, a week from now, we will both be in Charlotte attending the Exciting Windows Conference and IWCE, where we've got lots of seminars, lots of things happening. We get a chance to reconnect with all the people that we know in the industry. And I'm just saying to you right now that if you are going to the IWCE in Charlotte, please come up and introduce yourself to Vita, myself. Sarah Lynn Brennan will be there. Sarah Daniele, the CEO of My Doma Studio. Of course, Michelle Williams, Jill Rogers. I mean, all of our homies are going to be there. If I start naming them, I'm going to leave somebody out. So,
it's like, that's true. That's the danger. It is the danger of start naming people because
all of a sudden I'm like, and I just thought of it. The WCAA is going to be there. So, yeah, we got lots of people going to be there. So let's all make sure you please do introduce yourself to me. You know how much I love that in real life. Okay, so Vita, what are we going to do today? What are we talking about today? Get us going here.
Okay, so today, I'm really excited about this episode because we're talking about communication. And of course, there is no question about the importance of communication in anything that we do. And I don't think we need to sell anybody on the importance of that. There's also various layers of communication and various parties who communicate to each other. And there's designers to vendors, there's workrooms to designers, there's workrooms to there's all different directions in which it can go. The point and the goal of this episode is to pick apart and then put it back together the communication between the interior designer and the workroom. So that's the kind of the channel that we are talking about here.
Okay. And I'm just going to share with everybody that, Vita, you did some nice homework on this. Tell us about that.
Thank you for bringing it up, LuAnn. I really appreciate it. So what I have done is a couple of things. So this is our episode number 8, and we've been at it for a good half a year or so. And I've been getting a lot of feedback from various designers and workrooms and baby designers and seasoned designers. So there's all sorts of people that write to me saying, oh, this would be a great topic, that would be a great topic. Communication is consistently one of the topics that comes up. And as those people that have provided feedback to me have said that communication is a great topic, they also give me various examples or tips on which they would like to kind of present as something to be talked about. But ahead of this episode, I even took it a step further. So I belong to several window treatment private Facebook groups. One of those groups is called the Soft Furnishings and Upholstery Facebook group. It has over 1,100 members in it, and it's very, very active, to the point that sometimes I can't even keep up because there could be 10, 20, 30 different posts, and it's not just people posting, but people reacting. So it's not uncommon to have 20, 30, 50, sometimes even more comments and feedback points. So what I've done is I put up a post saying that LuAnn and I are doing this episode, and how wonderful it would be to have everybody in this group post back to me their feedback and their stories of communication, the good and the bad and everything in between, that these workrooms, essentially that's more of a workroom and a fabricator kind of group, so that these workrooms have had with their designers, and what has worked for them and what hasn't. So this is kind of their opportunity and mine and theirs to have our voice heard, and to make sure that we take advantage of all of our collective wisdom and the collective experience. So this is a huge shout out to my friends in the Soft Furnishings and Upholstery Facebook group. Thank you so much. I've taken all of your feedback, and I'm hoping that you will hear all of it as LuAnn and I go through our points here.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So we are going to start with the sequence of communication, like where it starts and what it goes through. And you are talking about here starting with the detailed estimate versus the top line budget estimate, okay? And the designer has to provide us with the proper information for a top line budget estimate. Take us through what you are talking about as that information, Vita.
Right. So I want to start off with making a distinction between what the detailed estimate is and what I call a top line budget estimate. People can call it a different ways. It could be a quote, it could be a budget, it could be just estimate, it could be proposal. So you can insert any sort of name into it as you wish, but the difference that I'm trying to make here is, one is what I call top line, so kind of like an overall number without all the details specified, and the other one is very, very detailed. And the reason I want to bring it up here in the sort of the beginning of this conversation is, at least that's what we do here at Vitalia Inc., and I'm pretty sure that you guys do something very similar at WindowWorks. Before we go into a very detailed description of the project and the description of a detail of the proposal, we provide our designer with the overall number, kind of like a budget number of what the project would run them, so that he or she can plug that number into their overall proposal that they're giving to the client to make sure that it kind of jives with their overall number. And so what that does, it works, it's kind of a win-win situation for both parties. It works for everybody. It works for the designer because they can have an understanding whether they are on the same page with the workroom. So if the workroom gives an overall budget of $5,000 and a designer had a placeholder of $1,000 for window treatments, then clearly we're not on the same page. But if we're much closer together, then there could be some back and forth conversation about how to make that happen. And then it's a win-win for the workroom because so one of the feedback that I received and its experience that I have had is that you spend hours putting together this detailed proposal just to find out 5 minutes later that it was too much, that it's not what the designer wanted or it's not what the homeowner wanted. And so, you know, you kind of feel used and abused and bad and all that you spent all this time. So to save yourself from feeling that way and from finding yourself in that situation, I have adopted the practice of not going into all the detail and just giving that top line budget number. Now, what is needed for the top line budget? And this is where the communication comes in, or the detail of the communication between the designer and the workroom. So in order for the fabricator, the workroom, to provide the designer with this overall top line budget number, there are certain basic things that are still absolutely necessary. So it would be the type of the style that we're talking about. So are we talking about Roman shade? Are we talking about drapery panels? Are we talking about a valance? Then your basic dimensions. It doesn't have to be exact, but your basic length and width would be very helpful. The quantity, are we talking about one headboard? Are we talking about 5 headboards? Then another very important thing, and this is the part that I find missing a lot of times, is the type of the fabric that you are looking at. So this is not the stage where the designer is required to have the exact fabric picked out. As a matter of fact, it's probably better that you haven't picked out the exact fabric. But in order for us to provide you with this top line budget estimate, we need to know whether you're thinking of 54-inch goods or 118-inch goods. So single width versus double width, because the yardage will differ and the labor in some cases will differ significantly. And also, if this is a drapery panel, the type of the hardware that you want us to quote is important too. It doesn't have to be exact. We don't have to go into exact number of rings and the exact vendor that we're going to use and the exact finish and all that stuff. But there is a difference between using your basic Kirsch traverse track versus a rod and rings that is from like a totally different look and feel and manufacturer. So that type of information of what kind of design style you're looking for in the hardware, that would be very helpful as well. So these are the, what did I say, like 1, 2, 3, I think 5 or 6 things that are important for the designer to provide to us in order for us, and by us I mean either window treatment specialists like myself and LuAnn, or the fabricators or the workrooms, to give you that top line overall numbers saying this project will run you about $2,000. Does it align with your budget? That's the question that we usually ask.
Okay. And this can come by email. This does not require a site visit at this point. So, if we, in my case, in your case, my case, I've got a lot of designers that are working in New York City, in the Hamptons. Your case, you've got designers that are into Philly or wherever. And it's helpful for both us and the designer to do this, as you say, this top line budget number. It's like before you drag us all the way into the city and find out that your client has a budget of $1,000 and the idea that you have for the window treatments is $5,000. It's like, let's nail that down. Okay. And so this can be a simple email to your window treatment provider that says this basic information. And what happens is at this point, we are throwing back at the designer the overall budget. So if it's for us at WindowWorks, we might do it by room. So I'm not, to your point, I'm not necessarily going to type it all out and every little thing, but it's like 4 Romans guest bedroom, $3,000, 2 pairs of draperies, living room, $2,000, like that sort of a thing, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
For us as well, it's also an email. The designer sends us an email with these basic specs, or a phone call too. That's fine as well. And then we, by email, send back this overall number.
Right. Okay, cool. And then the next step is if the budget is approved, because of course, to your point, the designer is getting approval on the budget for all the components, the window treatments, the furnishings, the electricity, like the lighting, whatever it is. And this is just plugging that number in. And then theoretically, the designer now gets their contract signed and their deposit on their product and their design fees collected. And now it's, okay, let's get real. We've got this project. Now I need you to specifically measure it. And we're going to come down and get to the next level of detail, right?
That's exactly right. And so this is where we actually have to go and meet together. Usually in my world, the best meeting that can take place is between my designer, the homeowner. If the designer chooses for them to be there, that's completely up to the designer, and myself or my staff. Now, I have to make this little caveat statement. Who does it exactly? Whether it's a window treatment specialist, a workroom, or an installer or a designer herself, that really depends on the business model that you run. And I would really encourage our listeners to go back and refer to the 2 episodes, LuAnn, that you and I did on the different business models that designers can have. It's either a do-it-yourself business model or a done-for-you business model. They're episodes 462 and 471. So who goes on site and walks through all the little intricacies and nuances and details of the job depends on which model that you run. For the purposes of this episode, I'm just going to use myself kind of as an example of what I do at these meetings. And LuAnn, I know you guys do this as well. Mm-hmm. So here's what happens at this meeting, at this site visit. We take the exact measurements of all the windows, of all the obstructions. We take notice of the obstructions. We take a look at all the mounting placements, make sure that the type of treatment and the hardware that we are thinking of, it has a place to be mounted to and be installed to. Because there's lots of things that can happen, right? There could be crown molding running in weird places. There could be soffits obstructing things in weird places. All sorts of things can happen. So in order, we don't just measure the width and length of the window, but we do it from the standpoint of how will this treatment be actually installed? Where will it be mounted? And what are the consequences or the repercussions of how it will be mounted? Then we discuss with our designer the various clearances. So for example, with drapery panels, oftentimes the question comes up, well, how far off the window will the drapery panel be mounted? Or if it is a functional drape, what will the stack of the drapery be? And so the question becomes then, how far off the window do we have to mount it in order for the drapery panel to clear the window completely so that the view is not obstructed? So all of those clearance type of questions and nuances, that's all discussed. If we are doing valances, then we discuss the long and the short points. So how far up above the window will the valance be mounted? How far down on the window will it go? If it has a short and the long point, where will they fall on the window? So all of those details. Stacks and coverages, I mentioned them too. Any kind of projection into the window, if it's a 1 layer of treatment, if it's 2 layers of treatment, how far into the room will it project? How far can it be mounted flush inside the window? Will it protrude out from the window? By how much? And if it protrudes out, then what will the gaps between the Roman shade and the window, or between the blind or any kind of shade, any sort of inside mount treatment, and the window will it create? So those types of things. This is where we also discuss the hardware too. So this is the meeting where we would bring our hardware catalogs. We would pull them out. We will pull out the finishes, like the little samples of chips for the hardware finishes, and we start discussing all of that with our designer and our client if she is there or he is there. So as you see, like anything that is relevant to the not just the fabrication of the treatment, but the installation of the treatment, the functionality of the treatment, how will the customer use the treatment, how will it look inside the room, like all of those nuances and details, all of that is discussed. And so in my world for Vitalia Inc., this is where I walk the designer and the client through all of this detail and the nuance.
And I have to say, I love all of this. I 100% agreement with all of it. And I just want to add, for me, when I think about the site measure visit, I think about the things that contribute to it being a more successful, productive visit. And what comes to mind most is who's at the visit. So, for instance, we work with firms that the principal is a solopreneur. So the designer doesn't have 3 assistants and project managers and junior designers. In this case, I think it is really important that the designer is on site for this visit, because if any of these obstructions or protrusions or, the stack comes up, what is very difficult is if you are the window treatment professional and the design firm has asked you to measure a project and no one from the design firm attends the meeting and you're there with their client. Because then that means that if I have any questions, I either can't get them answered so I can get the right measurements, or I'm engaging with your client. And I'm not wanting to do that. That's not my first line of, modus operandi there, right? I want the communication to be from the client to the designer to me, okay? And so what I find can often happen at this stage is that the designer can be busy. The designer can have faith and trust in us, and or the designer can feel like, well, it's not that complicated. You're just measuring for Roman shades in the guest bedroom. No big deal, right? And then you get there and it's like, well, but we didn't realize there's no place for an inside mount, and you say inside mount. So what am I doing? Right. And then the other thing that I have is if you're a bigger firm, so maybe you're a firm and you're a principal and you do have some junior or senior designers under you, if they are going to do this site visit, then they need to have the ability to make these decisions, right? Like in my mind, because it clogs the process up or it confuses the process. And I have to say, I find this to be something that in all fairness and honesty that we at Window Works have a hard time really drawing a hard line on this. It's sort of like, oh, the appointment was made for the client and myself and the designer, and then the morning of, oh, we've got an install that's running late, or we've got this, just go ahead and take the meeting without me. And my brain goes, you should be canceling this, LuAnn. Like, you should be canceling this. And then it's like, yeah, you know what I mean? And it's just a tough thing. And whether we will cancel or not, I will tell you, will depend a lot on how good our working relationship is with you. So, like, for instance, Sandra Funk. Sandra Funk, I will take that meeting all day long without somebody from her team there. But I also tell you, that's probably never going to happen. If somebody from her team can't be there, she's going to cancel the meeting. Like, that's probably the truth, right? But the relationship is so strong and so communicative and so respectful that she knows what I'm going to say in front of her client. I know what I'm going to say in front of her client. And I know if there's a problem, we're going to take care of it. But if it's a newer relationship with a newer design firm or a designer in all plain English has a track record of not being detail orientated, not locking down communication, then I am much less likely to allow that meeting to take place. Because the whole point of this meeting, you went through 90 things that we've got to look at, right? Yeah. What is the point of us doing this meeting if I can't get to clarity on these 90 things?
You're absolutely right, LuAnn, and I think that point couldn't be underscored any stronger. The strength of the relationship is key. And usually the strength of the relationship is directly related to the time that relationship has taken to build, right? So you and Sandra Fung, you are so strong together in part because you've been working together for so long. And that is very true for me as well. And it often happens that those designers with whom I've been working very long and they kind of know and trust me, they also trust that I would even have those conversations with the end consumer. And to your point, I would much prefer the designer to be there for her to listen and to witness these conversations. But if for some reason she can't, I am absolutely just as comfortable having it directly with the consumer. But also to your point, if the designer is new to me, also if the designer is new to window treatments, then I would highly encourage our listeners, if you are one of those designers that you're just starting a relationship with the workroom, or that you're new to window treatments, and those workrooms listening to us right now, if you're in that situation, then make sure that that meeting happens when all the important parties are there, so that all these 90 things that I just sped off, that they are covered and everybody hears them and is on the same page about them.
Well, because you know what happens when you have in your mind as the designer what the window treatment will be, and then as the window treatment professional we get there and we're like, yep, can't deliver that, there's this vent there you didn't notice, blah blah blah, whatever it is, that means that a pivot has to happen. And if I'm only having the conversation with the client, the designer now might be like, well, that's a great solution, LuAnn, thanks tons, but you didn't know I was, building this armoire here or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, number one,
Right.
I will tell you, even for us, like at Window Works, I am even reticent to have my own partner do a final measure without myself or whoever the salesperson is on the job, because of that exact same reason. There could be a window treatment that, yes, after even 40 years, I do not know how to measure for, right? And so I go out and I take my rough and we decide on everything. And I'm like, but I need Billy or I need Carlos to come back with me and double check things. Now, if I can't trust my partner, Bill, and our lead installer, Carlos, who can you trust? These are my people, right? We're a team. Mm-hmm. But I know that I'm leaving the door open for sending him in, him with my exact instructions of what I need to do, and him coming and saying and looking at it and saying it actually can't happen. And now because this is our client, we're not talking about to designer, we're talking about our direct retail consumer, he's going to say, hey, LuAnn or Kim or Rich or JC, they wanted to do this here, but it's not going to work. And now he's going to engage in a conversation with them. He's going to come back to me and say, hey, we decided to do this. And I'm going to look at him like, dude, no, that's not what we're going to do, And so I know from experience, whether it's working with a designer or working with my own retail consumer, the person who has the design vision, that's the thing. It's Billy might come up with the solution, but it might not fit the design vision that I have crafted with my client. And at the same token, I might come up with an altered solution when I'm there with the designer client, but if I don't have the designer there, I don't know if I'm aligning to his or her vision or not. I'm just coming up with a technical solution. And so it just spins wheels. It creates miscommunication. It creates gaps, and it creates places for the ball to be dropped. So that's my 2 cents on the site visit.
Right. The idea, the idea here, is it possible? Of course it's possible. Right. Is your workroom or window treatment specialist capable of doing it? Of course we are. But the main question here is not our capability or possibility. The main point here is what is the most productive and effective for everybody. Right. And if we kind of define the productivity and effectiveness of the least amount of effort for the most amount of output, that it behooves all of us to make sure that all the necessary parties are there present at the meeting.
Mm-hmm. And it also is incredibly valuable for the designer to work through the process of the redesign because of whatever obstruction is there or whatever the condition is with the window treatment professional on site, whether the client is there or not. I don't actually care if the client's there. Like, I could care less. That's up to the designer because, the client does not need to be there, and the designer can work through the solution with us and then go and present the outcome to the client. But if the designer is not there to really fully understand that, then that's also where I notice that we spend a lot of time and wheels on really keep saying the same thing over again. No, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Oh, but I really want that. Oh, really? That's awesome, but I can't do it. No, but I really want that. I already told the client we're going to get it. I'm like, yeah, but you're not going to get it, you see, because I can't do it.
And you know what? This is actually a really good segue to another really, really important aspect of this meeting that I didn't mention earlier because I kind of wanted to pull it out as almost like a separate standalone thing. And that is the type of the fabric that is being considered and selected for the project. Mm-hmm. Now, hugely, hugely important. And I know when I put out the call to my peeps to let me know what their experience has been and the feedback in general that I've been hearing, like, it's been very, very important to everybody that I've talked to. Please, those designers listening to us right now, before you finalize the fabric and before your client falls in love with the fabric, please run it by your workroom, because just because you think that it's the most gorgeous fabric in the world, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will behave and look the way you want it to look when it's fabricated into window treatment. If it's even possible to fabricate it into the window treatment that you want it to be fabricated into.
Right.
Now, the one fabric type that comes to mind at the moment, because it's so popular, is 100% linen. And I mean, if I said it once to my designers, I must have said it 500 times. It is absolutely okay with me if you pick 100% linen. I love 100% linens. They're beautiful and gorgeous. However, the most important part here is to set the proper expectations with the client. And that expectation is that 100% linen will stretch, it will grow. And just because you may want it to be just skimming the floor, it is most likely not possible to have 100% linen just skimming the floor 100% of the time.
Right.
Right, LuAnn?
Right. It not only lengthens, but it contracts. It's like, I've told the story.
You never know what you're going to get when you come into the room.
I know. I've told the story on the show before. I had Design New Jersey coming to my house to take pictures of the window treatments for their magazine. And I have floor to ceiling Coraggio fabric. It's like a linen wool blend. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's just the simplicity of it is what makes it so gorgeous. It's just so, and it's got such a great hand to it, and it's floor to ceiling, wall to wall, ripple fold, outstanding. Except that some days I come home from work and it's 1.5 inches on the ground. And other days I come home from work and it's just skimming, just the way it should be. You know what I mean? Right. And other days I come home from work and it's 0.5 inch off the ground. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be in the magazine. And so what was so funny was I had to I cognitively understand that it grows and shrinks, but I never paid attention. Did it grow in humidity? Did it shrink in humidity? What do I know from this? I'm not a scientist, right? So I had to start paying attention. And I remember I'm trying to figure out, is it when it's hot out, when it's cold out? What is it, right? And the morning of the photo shoot, I'm getting the house ready. Kim is here with me, and I'm looking at the drapes. I'm like, come on, baby, come on up. We can't, it should look like it should just touch the floor, if at all, because it's that clean look. And I'm looking at it, and it's sitting on the floor, and I'm pumping up the AC, and it's like November. And
everybody's freezing, but the linen's behaving
trying to
beautifully.
Get the humidity out of the room and get the cold off. And Marissa Pellegrini, who's a great interiors photographer here in New Jersey, she comes in, and we knew each other, but not that well. And after about 15 or 20 minutes, she's like, it's a little chilly in here, isn't it? I'm like, I'm cooling the drapes down, Marissa. I'm cooling the drapes.
Oh, that's funny. I'm cooling the drapes. I love it.
Oh my gosh, it's like insanity.
Awesome story. I love it. I mean, it just shows you that you never know with these natural fibers. You never know exactly how they're going to behave, and it's okay to love them, but know what's going to happen. So, and that's talking about linen. Of course, we can also parlay the same thing or a similar type of thing to 100% silk. It will never be 100% ironed out. It will always have those kind of wrinkles and creases. We can also talk about, say, upholstery weight fabric. If designers trying to use it for draperies, well, can you? Sure you can. Will it look great? No, it won't.
Right.
And will it need additional dressing and finagling, and still with not 100% guaranteed that it will behave perfectly? So all of those types of discussions and dialogues, they really need to take place, and the most productive place to have them is at this site meeting where all the parties are involved.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So then the next thing that happens is that after our site visit, then we go back and we do create that detailed proposal. So the first was the top line, big picture, stroke, and now we're going to go back, your company, my company, and companies like ours, and we're going to do the room by room, product by product, filling in all of the information, all of the things that we agreed to and we decided upon. And we're going to give the pricing on this. And this
That's
is
right.
what happened. So, and this is what, look, I don't think we need to go through every single thing that we give on this proposal, because it really just repeats pretty much all the things that we said that we're going to just ask questions on in the site visit.
Exactly.
But I will say this. This is your responsibility at this point to read this, because I am going to give back to you. Vita is going to give back to you what we took down. And I'm a broken record. There's two of us in the room, and only one of us has got a piece of paper and a pen writing things down. And I have to say, the newer, younger designers are much better at this. And maybe it's because they listen to me complain on the show all the time, and they're intimidated when they come to do a project with us. I don't know. But more of them are showing up with a paper and pen. And they look at me, they're like, I have a paper and pen. I'm like, yay. Mostly they have an iPad and they're writing in their iPad. But the thing about it is we're going to do our very best. And like I said, we're usually the ones that are writing the details down, and we're going to give it back to you. But you must read this. You must correct this. You must say, oh, okay, because I'm going to tell you we decided to ceiling mount this. And if you don't remember that part of the conversation and you don't agree, you got to circle this. You got to circle this. You got to call. You got to email. And you got to say, I really had wanted this mounted, 6 inches above the window. And then we're either going to come back and say, do you remember that part of the conversation? Or are you changing your mind? What is the deal? But you must take ownership of reading all of these details. It's as simple as that. And I don't know that I can let us talk anymore about that, because I'll get too mean.
That's okay. That's okay. So I know, I'm not sure if you guys do that at WindowWorks. I know some workrooms actually require the designers to sign this document. So, that's one of the ways to kind of ensure. I mean, have they read it or not? I guess it still remains a question, but at least there is a signature. Oftentimes, if there's still some outstanding things remaining, even though we've done the site visit and we've talked about it quite a bit, there may have even been some of the back and forth after the site visit, there may still be some outstanding questions that need to be answered. So I would put together the detailed proposal, and I would highlight the outstanding things in like red or yellow, or somehow I would highlight them. And in the email to my designer, I would say, this is the proposal, or I call it the detailed estimate for customer Smith. Please review it carefully. There are several things that are still outstanding, highlighted in red. Please let me know and give your approval.
Right.
So,
I love it. Yeah.
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 Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to be very good right now. Okay. All right.
Impressive, LuAnn.
Okay, so then
I have to say, I want to warn our designers, before you receive this detailed estimate. Actually, before I move on, I have to say, so LuAnn does the detailed estimate. I do the detailed estimate. A lot of the workrooms and the type of companies that similar to ours, we do the detailed estimate. But this is the part that may differ depending of what kind of workroom you are dealing with. So I would think that if you're dealing with more of like commercial workrooms that haven't necessarily come out and measured for you, then it actually your responsibility.
Yes, you're not getting that.
There's responsibility to do all of that in some sort of work order or purchase order that you then give to your workroom. And some of these bigger workrooms, they have forms that you can fill out. However, just make sure that when you fill out those forms, that you remember that like some of the clearances aren't necessarily reflected in the form. The length of the drapery, say, that you give to them has to include the bracket deduction or whatever other deductions that need to take place. So it's your responsibility to figure all of that out when you fill out the workroom. And I don't mean to be the broken record, and this is where LuAnn and I do go into much more detail in the two different business models. But just be careful that like somebody has to do it. Somebody has to put together this somebody has to do the detailed work, I should say, whether it's you, the designer, or the window treatment professional like LuAnn and I. Somebody has to do it in order to give the workroom the specs of how to fabricate the treatment, essentially.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And it's a good point to really drive home there, because if you are dealing directly with a fabricator, they're not going to prepare an estimate for you. They're
Right.
working. They're making drapes. When you actually deliver to them the detailed working instructions, then they'll make a drape for you. And until then, they're not looking at you. They're not worried about you. They're not thinking about you. And that's who I'm ordering my window treatments from, right? It's like in the Window Works model, so I always say, we're that concierge level of service for the interior designer. It's like I'm taking that role because I don't fabricate myself. So I'm taking everything that is in your head, and I am collating it, helping you decide if it's right, helping you learn if it's technically appropriate, giving you the pricing for it. And then when you say, okay, I'm transferring that all into window treatment workroom language so that it can be executed. But as an interior designer, you can open your own account. You can do that too. But then you have to do all of the front to get there. And it depends on your skill level, where you are. And that's what we were talking about, the one designer in your Profit with Window Treatments course. She is interested in developing that skill level and cutting out the person in the middle, like myself or whoever, right? So it just depends on what you want to do. I say it all the time. You know how to paint a room for your client. When's the last time you picked up a paintbrush? Like, if you don't have to, why would you? So, okay. And then once everything is done and those highlighted red items are,
put into black.
Exactly. Put into black. Right. Exactly. I love it. Then that's when you send in the copy of your purchase order. You send in your fabrics, and you send in your list of, I like to get a list. I don't get it so often, I'll just say, but I like to get a list of all the fabrics and all the trims, where they're coming from, the side marks, the pattern name and number, and the mills, because it just makes it so much more efficient, especially because so often, we'll give you a detailed proposal on, March 1st, and it'll say guest bedroom, Cravat fabric 4361, number 116. And then, 3-4 weeks later, when you've got your deposit, or months later, when you've got your deposit and your confirmed order with your client, well, that Cravat fabric might have, changed to a different Cravat fabric. But if you don't tell me, I don't know. And most of the time, you don't tell me. And I love that part about my job. But, but if you do send a schedule of fabrics that's separate, I'm okay with crisscrossing and finding out, like, oh, this is guest bedroom fabric now. It used to be this. I'm okay with that level. I'm prepared to work for my money. I really am. But a little help along the way would be swell.
And I think the point that you're trying to make, LuAnn, is that we understand that changes happen.
Yeah.
We understand that window treatments is only but only one part of the entire design scope of the room and the house and, the whole project. So we get that between the site visit and the last communication that you gave us, that it's the Cravat fabric number XYZ number 016, and between then and now, that fabric is maybe no longer available, or maybe you reconsidered other aspects of the room design and that fabric had to change. So we understand that anything can go on between then and now. The only thing that we ask is that if that fabric has changed, that you communicate that to us. Right. So don't just assume that we know that just happened, that we can get into your head. And don't just assume that if we get a bolt of fabric that is completely different and is nowhere in our paperwork, then we will know where it will go. So that's a bit of a pet peeve for all of us workrooms as well as the window treatment specialist.
Well,
how's that, LuAnn? Was that good?
That was good. That was so good. Okay. Thank you. But you know
You're
what it is? It's what I say in everything. Usually we're talking on the show with helping interior designers to set up the expectations with their clients and making sure that the projects go smoothly. And so much of that comes from really having those clear protocols with your client on how things get done. And when a client steps out of that communication or out of those protocols, you don't like it. You sit in there and you make an agreement with your client about, let's call it, all the interior paint colors. And then, the painter is there painting the house. The client comes home from work and she says to the painter, I don't like that color in my bedroom. You would never, ever, ever think that the client is going to sit there and start talking to the painter about what color to change it to, right? But they do. Mm-hmm. They have done that, right? Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden, so the point is that it's just understand that your relationship goes to your trades, and your trade is trying to help you keep everything locked down. But there needs to be a little bit of thought on how it's done, and it's to your benefit and to your client's benefit, at the end of the day, right? Now, I have to say, there's lots of details in here and I think we've covered some of the things in some of those, either of those two other episodes, the 462 and the 471. So definitely hit back to both of these episodes. But the thing is, I think now, because this is a show where the focus is on the communication, there are tips that Vita has put together. And of course, I've got my own little set of tips here that we think are good, helpful things to just sort of wrap the whole thing up in a bow, right?
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
And Vita, one of the things that you put down, which I love, is use one way of communicating, right?
Yeah, and it's definitely something that I've personally experienced and was frustrated by, and I know a lot of my colleagues as well, and I'm sure you are too, where there's so many means of communication nowadays, right? I mean, 20 years ago it was like phone and that's it. Mm-hmm. And now it's you can call, you can email, you can Facebook direct message, you can Instagram direct message, you can LinkedIn direct message, you can Viber, you can Voxer,
text message.
You can WhatsApp. Hello, text message. Right. I mean, so there's like 10 different ways that you can communicate information. I believe that, I think I'm speaking for everybody when I say our preferred method is email. Mm-hmm. Email is easily organizable. That's the word. It's also easily searchable, of course, if you organize it into folders and so forth. If you text us with a change in fabric, there's no way for us to then go back a month later, or at least it's very difficult, and say, but this is the fabric that you said it was going to be, and now you've shipped me something else. Mm-hmm. If you DM, again, it's not so easy, and plus it just makes it so much more complicated to go into 10 different ways of figuring out of how you communicated with me. So I think email is, for me, it's definitely a preferred way. As a matter of fact, and I know this one of the feedbacks from the Facebook group, and I do that also, if somebody DMs, messages, or text, or does whichever other way of communicating, I take like a snapshot of it or somehow copy it. I put it into an email and I shoot it over to the designer and say, this is what you sent me. I'm confirming that I received it. Or if it's a change in fabric, then I would take my detailed proposal. I would change the fabric to the new fabric, put in the new picture, and send in the new revised detailed proposal.
Right.
So again, to put it back into that channel where I can keep it organized, I can keep it searchable, and it's all in one place. So the idea is to have it all in one place.
And I know for 100% fact that this is so easily understood by interior designers, because we have the same conversation with them and their client. If they, if a client wants to change something on the proposal, they don't want that change in a text. They want that change in an email. So it's completely obvious. The one nuance that I want to bring up, and I know that you agree with it too, is to not have conversations about different clients in one email thread. Like,
yes.
There's nothing more difficult is if I email you a proposal for Client Smith and you email back replying to that and you say, oh, yes, Client Smith is a go. We have one change in fabrics. It's XYZ. And by the way, Client Jones, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. It's like, ixnay on that. Like, no.
Right. And so what I do in this situation, I would reply back and say, thank you for your response for client Smith. And then I would ignore the part about Jones, but I would pick up that original email. I would reply again. I would change the subject line to client Jones now and say, okay, got your information about client Jones, and then whatever, feedback I have to give about client Jones. So effectively, even though the designer gave me one email with two different client information there, I reply back as two emails with two different subject lines so that, again, I can organize and file them into different clients, and then if need to, search for it later.
Exactly. And the other thing is about follow-up and confirmation and making sure that things are clear and understood. So I recently had a coaching call with a designer who a trade vendor sent the client a work order, a proposal, and there was information missing from it. The designer actually was not responsible for checking this. The designer was out of this process. But weirdly and oddly, the contractor included the designer in the email. But the designer's contract was clear. She was not in this process. Whatever the agreements were and why they were made, she was not in this process. But she was copied on it. And so she looked at it and, checked certain things, and for the level that she checked it, it was appropriate and it was right. But then a week or two later, she said to herself, I'm not in the middle of this, but I just want to double check that these details are managed. And so she emailed the contractor, and the contractor said, yeah, I got, it's all covered. Don't worry about it. Well, come to find out that when the delivery was made of this particular thing, that those details that the designer included were not done. And the thing was, in the original contract, it was not mentioned one way or another. So it would be like saying, I'm ordering a Roman shade, but I don't say if I want it lined or not lined, right? It's like, I can't make a Roman shade if you didn't tell me if it's lined or unlined. And I can't make an assumption that it's lined or unlined. I've got to come back to you and ask a question. But this contractor didn't do that. He didn't specify the either or. And then when it was executed, one was defaulted and selected, but it was the wrong one. And the designer, who wasn't supposed to be in the middle of it at all, actually had given him the correct information in enough time to do it. But because he didn't stop and confirm, and he didn't take that information as something he should check. I mean, it's a conundrum all the way around, and I have my opinions on it. But my point is just the lesson that if it's your window treatment project, whether you are the window treatment provider or you are the designer, you have to take a minute and double check details. And if something is missing, you have to make the email or the phone call to find out what it is. You cannot, as a designer, just assume that 3 Roman shades, $560 times 3 is a correct detail. That's not enough detail. Are you getting them lined? Are they installed inside, outside? Do they have motorization? Do they have it must be specific. And here's what, we have a thing that we used to say at Window Works about working with either designers or clients. If you're going to be, all loosey-goosey on the details on the front end, you better be loosey-goosey on what gets delivered on the back end.
I love that.
It's okay all day long if you want me to make your choices, but don't you come like, oh, that's not what I wanted at the end.
Yeah. Right.
It's just being present mind. It's a lot of details to do a window treatment. And of course, as you said earlier in the show, Vita, it is just one blasted aspect of what a designer has on their plate. But at the end of the day, you're tasked with providing this service for your client, and you do have the shared responsibility with the workroom or the window treatment specialist to get it as right as you can. And the communication is the key. Period.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, like you said, don't make assumptions. Sometimes you even have to trust your intuition. Even if, things were said or things where you think are so clear and obvious, if they're not, like you just have to trust your intuition and think if you feel that something is off, that you need to honor that and then have that additional conversation. And oftentimes just to have a verbal conversation isn't enough. And um, I'd like to think that we do it all the time. We don't. I mean, but we should, and that is to follow up a verbal conversation with something in writing. As a matter of fact, right now we're going through a situation where a designer had is insisting that she specified something on an upholstery. I don't have it anywhere in writing. And we're kind of back and forth. We're like, but she said, I said this. I'm like, well, no, we didn't. We don't have it. So it's just, it's a whole, it's it's a little bit of a mess. We'll figure it out, I'm sure. But if you honor your intuition, have a conversation, then follow up that conversation with something, with a message, a really quick email, not text,
Right.
not a DM, an email so that you have it in writing.
Yeah. It's just, look, it's just business protocol. We're all working together for the same outcome, but the more we each own our part of the process, the better the outcome will be. And if, I could be the greatest, person on the planet, and if you tell me something and I forget it, we're all beat. But if you email it to me, well, you're not beat, I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's as simple as that.
Right.
So
it's really important to be very clear and upfront about a lot of things. So be very upfront and clear about the money situation. How much does it cost? It costs $1,000. Yes, it does. It's not $900. It's $1,200. It's not, oh, we'll figure it out later. It costs $1,000. Is the deposit required? Yes, it is. When does the lead time start? Once the deposit is received. How much is the deposit? It's 50%. Now, and I just went through these scenarios because that's what it is for me, but for you, it could be something different. I'm talking to fabricators. Whatever it is for you, you have to be very clear and upfront about what it is. And for the designers, if you're hearing a lead time of, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks, it is 4 to 6 weeks. And just because you want something installed by May 1st, I'm sure your fabricator will do everything in her power to do that. But if you had given her the fabric on April 28th, it doesn't mean that May 1 is now possible. That lead time in writing is 4 to 6 weeks. So all of those little, like you said, business protocols and intricacies and nuances, they better all be in writing. And for us, for Vitalia Inc., I mean, we have 80 different templates of every possible treatment that we could possibly fabricate. And there's different specifications for every treatment, like a Roman shade spec would be very different from that of a panel or that of a cornice. But there are certain things that stay the same, like a lot of the header information. Like you have to have your customer information there and all of it incomplete. You have to have your terms. It's 50% deposit. The lead time is this. The acceptable payment forms is this, and that. The tax is this. Who pays the tax? Well, who do you have the financial relationship with? So all of those business type, there seemed like so little and maybe insignificant, but nothing becomes insignificant when it actually becomes a big deal on the back end.
Right. It's all about the communication
to
on the
outline
front.
all of that up front.
Absolutely. Well, Vita, I have to say, as usual, you killed it. So I really appreciate all the energy and creativity and thought that you put into creating these shows for us and for our colleagues. And I have to say, if you're in the South Jersey, Philly area, anywhere in that couple-hour radius down there, you know that you can rely on and call Vita at VitaliaInc.com. Vita, is that it?
VitaliaInc.com. Right? That's right.
And she is outstanding to work with. And of course, in the New York metro area, you do have Window Works, where if you have window treatment projects or you have awning projects, we have a lot of interior designers now that are finally understanding how much money can be made on their projects by specifying outdoor products for their clients' areas. And Window Works, we can do awnings, we can do retractable exterior screens, we can do pergola covers, all kinds of stuff. And then, of course, if you're not in our area, you can look to excitingwindows.com, and that is a national organization that Window Works is part of, and you will find a whole network of window treatment retailers there that if you want to work with the model, the concierge level service like we do, and you want that done-for-you type model and that collaboration, excitingwindows.com is a great place to find some window treatment professionals. And, of course, if you're looking for workrooms and you want to do the more, do-it-yourself type window treatment model, the WCAA, Window Coverings Association of America, is just jam-packed with tons of professional workrooms all over the country. And, of course, window treatment retailers are there as well. But it's an awesome place to find that workroom level relationship and business that you can have a relationship with. So I have to say, and I didn't say, if you're interested in profitwithwindowtreatments.com, if we are going to run a repeat of this class, you can get on the interest email list by going to profitwithwindowtreatments.com. You put your name on that email list, and when we announce another round of that class, you'll be the first to know about it. All righty, so at this point, Vita,
fun.
Our next stop is Exciting Windows Conference in IWCE. We're going to see all our friends down there. Looking forward to that. And then
it's High Point.
Then it's High Point. Exactly. So, thank you, Vita, so much for coming today. I appreciate your time and your expertise always. You're just such an amazing font of information, and I value that you choose to spend your time with us here. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, LuAnn, and likewise, and right back at you. I never take this opportunity for granted. I always said I am so appreciative that you chose me to be your co-pilot on this. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for elevating the whole realm and the world of window treatments, and for championing the window treatment specialists and workrooms, and the whole idea of window treatments as part of the design project scope. Thank you.
You make it possible, Vita, so thank you back.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.